Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of May, 2006. It's 5:29 p.m. Councilwoman Bell is present. Councilman Hodge, Vice Mayor Losner, Councilwoman Wallman, and Councilman Porter. Councilwoman Amanda Garner will not be here this evening. She's tied up at work. Special call, and there's two items on the special call. Item 3A is the management and operation of the Michael Williams Community Center in River George Park from the Empowerment Trust, Sedma to the City Homestead. Mr. Manager, have one.
I'll take it now.
Councilman Gorman.
The manager's not over there. Could we shut that door? Because I can't, there's a glare coming off of a car that I can't see anything. I can't see Pastor Terry sitting there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now I see people. This has been a very long journey for our Parks and Rec Department and for the South Bay Ministerial Alliance. I think it was 2 years ago, right, Pastor Terry? 2 years ago, with the best intentions and just fullness in their heart, they took over Roby George and FICO Williams, and unfortunately their funding pulled out, and they were caught high and dry. And it's a city-owned building, it's city-owned property, and we went, the Ministerial Alliance, they were so willing to help us and to come to terms with what we could do about it, but unfortunately our lease was with someone else. So we had several parties involved, and it took us quite a while before we could get everybody in town at the same time and everybody at the table at the same time. But finally we did, and tonight I'm asking for the city to take back on the responsibility for FICO Williams and for Roby George Park. We've had very little services for the last 2 years for the children. It's almost summertime. We have already been working on putting together our programs, and we do still have the mentoring project there in the facility, which they will continue to remain there, and we'll have a lease with them. But basically, it's bottom line. I mean, it's our building. We owe a service to the children there. The ministers have done everything in their power, and thank you so much from all of us for doing the best you could, for hanging on. And what I've done is I've formed, because I want them to still be the heartbeat of the community, so I formed an advisory committee that will work hand in hand with Rick and the CRA, and they will be an advisory board that will shed, you'll shed your opinions, you'll share your influence as to what you might want to see go in that community, so they will still be a very integral, active part of the Southwest section. And I wanted to make sure that their legacy lives on, because they have done everything. They're the people that pull it together in that community. So, do I have a motion so that we can...
Move the motion, Madam Chair.
I believe the motion needs to, is that right, Marlene? The motion needs to state...
I move that we terminate agreement with the Miami-Dade Empowerment Trust for the management and operation of the FICO Williams Community Center in River George Park, and the use agreement with the Southeast Dade Ministerial Alliance for a portion of the FICO Williams Community Center for the housing of the You and Me mentoring program, and personnel and operational costs for the FICO Williams Community Center in River George Park from May 1st through the end of the fiscal year.
Mayor Warren made the motion, and I believe Councilman Hodge seconded the motion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any discussion? Any questions? None? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I didn't ask for public comment. Should I have asked for public comment?
You can ask it for any brief public comment.
Any brief public comment? No? All right. it's done. Thank you so much, and Pastor Terry, you can sleep tonight. Thank you.
Item 2 is the disposition of city properties. Mr. Manager.
Mayor and Council, I put before you a recommendation on dealing with several pieces of property that the city owns, and that probably from time to time that we've had inquiries by interested parties to purchase the land. We've talked about these pieces individually from time to time about putting them on the market and putting them back on the tax roll. I will say at this time, I'd like to amend this list of property and remove the bowling alley at this time. It will come back up. As you know, we were in foreclosure proceedings on that. And I talked with the attorney again today, and he just felt uneasy about moving forward with anything on that at this point, because we're filing for the foreclosure, and any change in the status of the property, from outside of the bankruptcy, we're filing for foreclosure as a result of the bankruptcy and non-payment to us, and that this might be considered by the bankruptcy court as kind of changing the status of the property a little bit, and he just felt uneasy about upsetting anything there until we finish our procedure there, which is moving reasonably quickly. So I would remove the bowling alley. But as I talk about the other pieces, we have here the Park of Commerce, the 530-acre mitigated area. There's the 6-acre triangle portion just south of and adjacent to the baseball stadium, and the City Hall site. Now, each of these properties carry with them some characteristics that if we instruct me to put bid packages together on them, we're going to have to put in some characteristics of each of these properties in relationship to the bids and disclosures and things of that nature. For example, 530 acres of mitigated, it's mitigated. Somebody's going to have to unmitigate it. There's zoning issues, but there has been some interest in that. That's why it's on here. The Park of Commerce, has been a number of inquiries about that. 6-acre Triangle Park has been there have been a number of inquiries there, and the City Hall site, of course. I think the issue there is, do we want to do this now and enter into an arrangement with someone in which you're locking in the price, is how I see the arrangement going. Lock in the price, there's money put in escrow, and we are here till we move to our new site, and then the closing occurs. Our second option on that is not to bid it out and to wait the 2 years, or whatever time frame I used to as a sample time frame, but till we're into our new City Hall site, or imminently into our new City Hall site, and then put it out for bid and sale, and wait and see what the market is then. And that I see those kinds of issues coming in deciding whether to bid these parcels out, when you want to do it. Some of them have special arrangements to them that I'm not sure exactly how much we'll get, say 530 inquiries on that, but there have been some, so we'll see when it comes time to bid on it if those interests are still there on that.
That's a question, Mayor. Mr. Porter? Mr. Ivey, you talk about the City Hall. I know when we originally were discussing, the disposition of this property, there was a lot of quality of life issues that came into play. You could buy it, and then there are certain things that may end up on the property that may or may not be in the public's best interest, let's just say, because it's just totally based on the zoning. And in the RFP, would you construct the RFP so that the city would still then have limitations or input on that? I know that would affect the value, right, but you would have to have some sort of somewhat control, I guess, still.
My thought on that is we probably could put some general characteristics of what we're looking for. Remember, each of the bid packages, and in our bid there is you can reject all these bids that you come in if you didn't like what it turned out to be as far as the proposed project or those kinds of things, or whatever. you don't like. But in some of this, I think that we would, you take the Park of Commerce, for example, the disclosures there of the ACUs, the close relationship to the track, that you would require them for anyone that they bill for or moves in there, that they sign this disclaimer or notice that they're next to the track, maybe a noise easement, those kinds of things that we will, if you tell us to go forward, we'll be building into this bid as just kind of as a generic notification. We may not pick up everything, but at the time when we come and look at the project, that people in the bid, we will want them to indicate the use of the property as well, the intended use of the property as well as the price and that kind of thing.
And I guess the other question, the other night at the council meeting, I asked briefly about any future needs for the city, and had the directors really had much time to have any dialogue as far as once the inventory of property is gone, it's going to be much more difficult to get any back, or we may have the ability to take some of the property and swap it for better use property someplace else, and that was a concern and probably still is a concern. Have you factored any of that in lately?
What we've done is after the meeting, we put out the email again to department heads. We've had some responses, and we're going to accumulate those to see. For example, we had a response from an electric department about potential future substations, but none of them were in the area where we're talking about where we have property. So we've got to look at that. The PD, we've got to make a decision sometime in the near future about the police department. They've outgrown basically, and it's never was really built as a police department. It was something that was redesigned to be the police department, and we're going to have to look at that issue sometime in the future as to location, and it may be some of the proceeds we get, we may have to end up buying some land in the appropriate area that we don't have land in now in the future. So we are collecting those now. We just have to, the department heads are currently in the process of answering that email, and we're going to put them all in cumulatively and look at them and see where that lets us, where that puts us.
So in order to draft these RFPs, there is some time on the table where we can have feedback from staff as far as directors are concerned, so that when we actually have to address each individual property, we would have some feeling as to whether, because sometimes the concern that you have, and we've had it happen in the past, the properties that we sell today, you have to pay 2, 3, 4 times as much for the less property that you'll have to buy tomorrow. And if there were a way if we had something of value out east and we needed something of value out west, it seemed like today might be the appropriate time to make some sort of a swap, if it were available. So that was a concern, before we just got rid of everything. That was really where I was trying to go.
Well, we can look at that and see if there are impacts. I mean, we really know that we want something, I don't know, on a regional size, but a marginally good sized park on the west side, according to our park master plan. That land, we've looked at some land adjacent to the city before. I don't know if what we have east would be appropriate to trade for west. If we want to do that, they may just want a cash deal at the end of the day. But if nothing else, it may give us some cash to be able to make those purchases as well in the future. But we will look at that. We're estimating, I talked to Brian O'Connor with procurement, and we're a minimum of 2 weeks away of putting these bid packages together if I'm instructed to do that tonight. So there's going to be some time. I say 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks. We get it in and look at it and get legal approval and that kind of thing at the end, and make sure that we craft this the best we can.
So prior to any bid being released or going out, the council would have an opportunity to have any additional input prior to that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, with the proviso that normally the manager is authorized to prepare the bid specs, and then the council normally does not see them again until they've already gone out, unless the council provides otherwise.
Well, the issue is because there's, obviously I think there's a consensus that we all want to continue to move forward, but at the same time there are things that are pending that are unfinished, that if staff has issues or if there's other issues out there, that we'd like to make sure that we hold it before we give it out to an RFP in case we need it for some other use.
Right, the council could always authorize the manager to prepare the bid specifications, but to bring them back to the council before putting them out on the street as a solicitation.
That's all I had, Mayor. I'll see what everybody else has to say.
So, good comment. Councilwoman Bell?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Porter brings up some very interesting, actually questions, if you will. But couldn't we always put as a condition of purchase a restrictive covenant on anything that we had concerns over? Let's just say we decided on a particular area that we only wanted it to be, we wanted it to be non-residential, and somebody wanted to purchase it. We could say, well, we simply want a restrictive covenant that says that you would agree that this would be non-residential, and then that would take care of, if that was one of our concerns, that would take care of that concern. Whatever other concerns we had, we could pretty much deal with those concerns.
That's correct. Whenever the city sells property, it's in the city's discretion, so they could always, before signing a contract of sale, the city could always put whatever restrictions were desired, and before making an award of a bid, would advise of those restrictions, and if those restrictions were not acceptable, would not make the award to that particular entity.
Right, thank you. Yeah, and I think that that's a good point, though, to make sure that we don't give up properties where we need properties. One interesting note that I was, I noticed that everything that's on here, that we don't have the sports complex. So that's good, because that was my only concern. And we know we need to sell the Park of Commerce. I'm very interested in selling, right. I'm very interested in selling the mitigated land if we can get a good price for it, and also the City Hall site. I think that if we could go ahead and proffer it now, if you will, and then we know the future plans, and then we've got the money in the bank, if you will, to use for that particular City Hall site as we're growing, and we could literally transfer straight from here to there rather than waiting to sell this. I mean, I think that there's some good steps to be made in starting this now, especially since the piece that I was concerned about is not in here, of course, along with the bowling alley. So I see no harm in proceeding with bids and proceeding with a bid process with specifics and maybe whatever council has concerns about to be put in and offered as restrictive covenants for whatever the concerns happen to be.
I think that we can, we've got some things that are criteria, I'll call them restrictive if need be, but I mean, in the Park of Commerce, certainly there'll be a covenant for no residential building there. That's an obvious. But we also don't want land banking. We want someone to develop in the park. If somebody gets the Park of Commerce, part of the bid, in my estimation right now, would be that they start development within a reasonable period of time, which we would name and agree on. That it gets moving, and we're looking for jobs. We're looking for farm taxes, as well as the sale. So there will be some of that that can be put in there initially, and as we go to negotiate an end contract with someone, we can also have that opportunity for anything that we may miss or concerns that come up in between.
And that was my thought exactly, too, that we go ahead and get this on the tax rolls. While we may wait a year or two to thinking that we might get a little bit more money, we don't have something on the tax rolls as quickly, so it may offset it. So I think we need to look at the big picture here, if you will, and not try to hold out. The market is hot right now. There's a lot of interest in this community. I've gotten a lot of phone calls on people wanting to, we've had meetings, and I've actually recommended to two of them that they have meetings with all of council, and to let everybody know that this is becoming a very hot commodity, this area, but let's not sit on it. And I like that, Kurt, that you said that anything that we're going to do, we don't want the land banking, and I do appreciate that. Thank you.
If I may, as the executive director of the CRA, since this particular site's in the CRA, it's conceivable that we could go ahead and sell the property and continue residence on it, and then use the proceeds of the sale to help finance the construction, so we didn't either have to borrow money or use our fund balance, our cash reserves, to actually fund the construction of the city hall. So I mean, there's different options, and like the manager said, there's certain restrictions you would want to put on the sale. No matter what the offer, as an example, no matter what the offer is for an automobile dealership, you don't want to sell it for that, because the only value that will ever be there is the land value plus a 5,000 square foot metal building that's used for a sales office instead of several 100,000 square feet of commercial and residential property that has substantially more ad valorem tax. It may be a good deal up front and a bad deal forever if you sell for the wrong purpose, no matter what the offer is.
Sure.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Kurt, I guess it would be reasonable to say that it'd be at least 3 weeks before the packages were ready to hit the street.
I would say so. We've got a Washington trip in between, I think.
That's right.
It's 3 or 4 days, so yeah.
Clearly, as Mr. Porter, alluded to earlier this week, that, if we're going to put these packages and invite people to come to the dance, we need to be ready to leave and go to the dance when they get here, because it's, that's right, we had that same situation here with this very site several years ago, right? Prior to the time I was on council, that we invited people to make proposals and then abandoned that. And certainly we spend a lot of time from our side of the table, and public proposers certainly spend a lot of time and money and thoughtfulness to prepare those packages. And clearly, it's always been my understanding that there would be certain criteria built in that would be specific and special to those individual parcels, that clearly, not only in the final analysis would I envision looking at price, but use as, the combination, and I think probably the most talked about site would be, in that regard, would have been this site. But that 3 to 4 week period gives our staff the time to analyze and talk to us about police substation, electrical substation, and maybe even we want to take a hard and final look at whether or not any site that the city currently owns may be suitable for an educational type site, or whatever it may be, whether educational, electrical, police-oriented, whatever. So with the understanding that we and our staff have 3 to 4 weeks in reality before these packages are ready to go out, I would suggest then that maybe tonight we authorize your staff to begin preparing the packages, but that it would take further action by this council to authorize the release of those packages so that we could take one final look and get your recommendations on whether or not we ought to reserve some of those parcels before we put them out there and ask people to spend time, money, and effort, and then we decide that, well, we don't really want to release these. So, in that regard, recognizing we've got probably 30 days, that would be my motion, is to move forward with to authorize the preparation, but not the release, that it would take further action of the council to authorize the manager to release the packages, to release the bid.
It's fine.
I support that initiative, Mr. Vice Mayor, but let me, just for food of thought to the council, and I think we need to proceed with that direction, Mr. Vice Mayor. But what I'd like for the council to think about in the next 30 days is this. Is it wise for a city to exhaust all of its land bank today, 2006, and not reserve land for the future? And I'm really making reference to the 530 acres. Is it wise to put that out, or should we have that as an asset for the future generation of the city of Homestead? Because once it's gone, we have nothing left. Every piece of land that we own in the city of Homestead would be exhausted. I'm interested in knowing what the ideas will come back with the 530 acres.
That's what I am.
But I've really been giving it some very careful thought. Are we leaving the right legacy, this elected body, and exhausting everything that we have? What is the rush in doing it? So as we move forward, now I'm going to support the Vice Mayor's motion, but I'm hoping in the next 30 days that maybe some of you will come with an answer for me, whether we are really going in the right direction, because I think about, and I wanted to pose this to Mr. Porter, as I was thinking about this whole special call, I'm thinking about at some point, should we not pause and let the infrastructure catch up to what we're doing?
Sure.
Now, I will tell you, one of my primary issues is this Park of Commerce. We must now do something with commercial industrial development in Homestead and stop talking about it. I mean, I'm sick of it. I've talked to the manager every day this week, and I'm tired of saying we're going to do something, and we have not done anything yet. And we need jobs in this community, high-paying jobs in this community. So one of my top priorities is to make sure that we move forward with this Park of Commerce. So I hope in the next 30 days we become focused, and whatever decision we make, we move forward with it. But I want you to give some serious thought to what we're going to do with this 530 acres. And I'm going to speak to some folks about it, because I just think that we need to think about short-term, long-term needs in terms of land banking, in terms of today, are we looking in the future and say, is this the best use for the existing properties that we own in the city of Homestead? And let me tell you, I've listened to some fantastic proposals for the 530 acres, and I'm excited about it. But is that the best use today for Homestead? Is there a wait-and-see approach here? So there's a lot that we need to contemplate before we move forward, but just mind you, once it's gone, it's gone. Should it not be a buffer? Should it not be for passive use for now and in the future? Do we need the revenues today? So I think we need to look at that very, very carefully, and but we just got to move forward with this Park of Commerce. We know that the city also got to move quickly. I'm hoping that the bowling alley site moved very quickly, and we certainly need to give some thought at some point to the stadium, whether we're going to permanently designate that as open space, or what we're going to do about it, and then the 530 acres. It is just critical, and I want you to really think about, are we making the right decision today for the future generation by giving that 500, that mitigated land away today? And I haven't made my mind up yet.
Mayor, can I answer?
Mr. Porter, but on top of that is the overwhelming need to improve our infrastructure in Homestead, and how do we match all of that and make sense out of it, Mr. Porter?
Well, I agree totally, and I reserve the right when the manager comes back with the final RFPs to vote against any and every one that I want to, because I have a similar feeling that you do. But I think we need to also talk about as we talk about infrastructure and exposure, the 93 agreement, and closing that loophole, that pie in the sky that everybody's shooting at us with, and that needs to be closed in the next 30 days with all of these issues that are on the table. I know you and Mr. Lossner have worked seriously on this, but I think that we need to, if we're going to deal with infrastructure, if we're going to deal with closing, if we're going to deal with liquidating ourselves of assets that may be used to help close this deal, I think we need to include that in on that 30-day window. You got 30 days to get all the players to come back with something. Whether you like it or not, we need to get it in front of the council so we can vote it up or down. And I would hope that the council would agree. And I know this is not about the 500. This is not about the 93 agreement, but it's intertwined in this arrangement. So, Mr. Manager, if I'll second the motion, but I would like to see that included in that.
It's included in the motion.
I might comment on that.
Yeah, Mr. Porter, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and the Vice Mayor just mentioned May 5th would be June 5th would be 30 days, and I agree with you on the 1993 agreement, and I'm going to ask the Vice Mayor that within the 30-day period, that's going to be the last discussion on the 1993 agreement.
That is
either you come back with an agreement, And if there's no agreement on June 5th, then, that deal is closed. We're going to move forward.
It's our full intention to accomplish that, either to bring a proposal that the manager and I can support, or to advise the council that we were not able to reach agreement. That's fully it's been the source of much discussion.
And I'm hoping, council, that there's no extension of that time frame, no further discussion, Mr. Manager. That will be the end of the day. Do we have a consensus on that?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The other side issue.
Mr.
A related issue, and then clearly, the question of whether or not we should divest ourselves of most of our land assets is really an important question. I'm wondering that once these do go out, if maybe we should look at, clearly I think our park master plan proposals indicate that we need large open space, park-type space, regional space on both sides of our city. And while there is still open land available, not yet under construction on the west side of Homestead, I think our next step would be to begin to perhaps earmark and try to get large tracts of property under contract for future land banking while we have the money in hand for, and I'll just throw the Park and Commerce out as an example. Clearly, that's not appropriately utilized as the open space that it is now, but perhaps a portion of the proceeds from the sale of the Park and Commerce would be to acquire, and I don't use this in a legal sense, park-type space, open space that the master plan suggests that we should have to accommodate our population 20 years from now. Because it's either now or never, even as the market is slowing down. I think that for that size parcel, the time may have already passed.
Councilwoman Bell and then Councilwoman Gorman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've got all of our wheels turning up here, Mayor. And I think everybody's had really, really good comments and suggestions tonight. And I think that in land banking, I think we need to always be cautious with land banking, especially if you can. It's not just about the dollar that you get for the property, but of course, as been pointed out, it's about the end use of that property. And I think that I'm very confident in the fact that we are going to be taking a look at the packets. We're going to be taking a look at them. I think that eases me a bit to know that it's about the end use. We must always be cautious of, any type of encroachment upon the track, upon the Air Force Base, anything. Those are very big concerns for me. Again, of course, maybe there could be a portion of, I think this is things that we can always look at unless a person needs all of it. There might be a chunk of land that we could carve out that wouldn't be for sale. Let's say if you have 530 acres, what's to say you can't carve out 200 of those acres and set that aside? But I would be cautious about holding back the whole 530 unless we had an end result for that 530. I don't want to, and with all due respect, and I really think you have a very good point, but I don't want to land bank just for the sake of land banking unless it's something specific like our sports complex, which I think does belong to the community, and I think that there's a big part of that, especially the part that's right within the ACUs, that we must be very cautious about. But I think your point is very, very well taken, and I think you've kind of given us all a little bit of food for thought. But I would also caution us that we don't want to land bank for the sake of land banking. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Warman?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the baseball stadium. The manager in Parks and Recs and I have been in talks now for over a year, I would say, on the possibility of making the designation of the baseball stadium a park. And if we did that, that would have to go to the referendum vote. But we're still debating that. We're still debating as to do we do it, do we not do it. There's a lot of issues here, but it is a beautiful, big, open space, and I really want to keep it open and have the room for the children. And they do use the soccer fields there, so it's very important. As far as the 530 acres, we had one time talked about doing a wetlands park there. We've been in discussions with several of the state agencies and the county agencies. I don't know if that would work or not. We haven't gotten to that point. But I do agree with the mayor that we and with Vice Mayor Losner that we need to have park space on the west side, and that's our dilemma. We look at that all the time, and I was hoping when we do annexation, that possibly there's a way that we could negotiate with the property owners and possibly carve out a large section of land for the purposes of green space and parks. So that's all, I think, down the road, but yet we have to look at it right now because down the road is going to be here very soon. As far as the 1993 agreement goes, I would like nothing more than to see that settled, one way or the other. See it settled. There's so many things that we have to take into consideration, and the general public, unfortunately, just doesn't understand the concept of the 1993 agreement, and that is that, if we don't settle it, we're going to end up in court. We're going to end up in court. So we have to weigh that, and I trust that, that the manager's office and I know Mr. Losner will work diligently to try to come to some conclusion on that within 30 days. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir.
We do? We have a motion and a second.
That incorporates the 30-day timeline for the 93 agreement and the release without approval.
That was a consensus of the council.
Yes.
Votes may be taken on that motion.
Any other comments? I'll take some public comments at this time. Any comments from the public? I think everyone have pretty much heard the direction. Any comments? Any comments? We'll be meeting in the next 30 days and trying to hash this out further, and hopefully we'll make some final decisions at that time. If not, all in favor, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Hodge?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Waldman?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
That ends the special call. Thank you all very much for coming.
Oh, it's not something I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.